combat alert. I received a call at work that my wife was in a terrible accident. I told my staff I was heading to the hospital. They were good people and would do everything they could to help me. I told them I would call from the hospital. Let my fears turn out to be unfounded. The hospital looked typical. It seemed designed specifically to prolong and deepen the suffering of a family waiting for some news. Even confirmation that the hospital had called the right people and that it was indeed my dear wife, Addie, whom they had admitted. After what seemed like an eternity, a nurse and a trainee doctor approached me. Unfortunately, their patient was my Eddie. She had various bruises and injuries to internal organs, although no internal bleeding was found. Her legs were broken, and apparently badly. Yes, they thought that she would be able to walk again, but the rehabilitation would be long. The nurse kindly asked if Addie was an athlete because, as she said, she had, in the past tense, nice legs. God, I thought they were even trained to communicate with relatives. She added that the scarring would be significant, but could be corrected later. However, the shape and tone of the muscles will be impaired. I replied that Addie was a dancer, professionally in her youth, and continued to practice exercises. The nurse nodded understandingly and explained, "That's what I thought. If all goes well, she'll be able to cope with the rehabilitation as she's used to the grueling training. However, she was probably very proud of her legs, so the scars and atrophy may affect her psychologically. You will have to support her emotionally. You must reassure her that we can improve the condition of the skin. If she continues with rehabilitation, then muscle tone should also be restored, but she will probably have reduced abilities in these legs. You need to understand what she is dealing with, to be faced." Wow, the nurse gave me a job to channel my energy while calming many of my fears and preparing me to be a better caregiver for my wife. As you can see, she was trained in interpersonal skills. By proving this, she really took the edge off my considerable anxiety. By painting a picture of the future, she subtly made it clear that there would still be a future. Everything else can be solved. It was skillfully done. They prepared me perfectly to deliver the big news. The car's airbag deployed in the crash, protecting Eddie from other visible injuries, but she was left in a coma with brain swelling. And it was a difficult task. They had to remove a small part of her skull to relieve the pressure caused by the swelling. They said that if the swelling goes down quickly enough, they can put the removed part of the skull back in place. If not, they will install a plate later. They seemed calm about the procedure, but the amount of swelling was causing them concern. Damn, that was a devastating blow. They continued that they had dealt with this level of cerebral swelling before, but it was always a difficult matter, and not always everything ended well. I got down on my knees and told them they could take my vital organs if it would help save her and make her healthy. Just let my Eddie survive. They sat me down and assured me that they were very good at what they did and were doing their best. But such cases were beyond their control, and everything that could be done was being done, which sounded like a great statement to protect their reputation. Then they left me to stew in my thoughts for a few more hours. The nurse later came back to talk to me some more. She said that she sees both a lot of concern from families every day and a lack thereof, so she could understand that I really loved my wife. I told her that I was serious about trading my life for Eddie's and that I would sign whatever paperwork was necessary to do so. She smiled and put her hand on mine, saying it was nice, but that's not how things are done. She said she wanted me to know that they really understood my wife's condition. I called my relatives and told them the news. Then I did the same with my parents. I asked them to start calling a list of family and friends they knew. I called one of Eddie's best friends, Carol, and told her everything, asking her to tell others, which led to a strange conversation. Carol asked me if Addie was alone when the accident happened and where exactly the accident happened. She seemed to make a big deal out of asking what time the accident happened. I just told her that Eddie is in a coma and might die. What does it matter? This is something I should have paid more attention to. Finally, the police came, and they asked me questions such as whether Eddie usually drove the route where the accident happened. Now, I really didn't know what to think about Carol's questions about where Eddie was and whether she was alone. I gave this to the police. One asked if she should be alone. I replied, trying to be as helpful as possible. Well, yes and no. She didn't have any appointments scheduled, but it wouldn't be unusual for a friend to be traveling with her, no matter where she was going. Where exactly was she going? Asked the policeman. I tried not to sound confused. I have no idea, officers. We don't usually go to anything in that part of town. Maybe a new lunch spot or cafe. I suggested a solution that seemed reasonable, even though my stomach started to hurt. Seemingly satisfied, the police began sharing information with me. Ultimately, Addie simply wasn't paying attention and drove through the intersection, ending up partially under the truck. Her legs were broken when the front of her car collapsed. Her body dove forward and her forehead met the deploying airbag. Doctors think this could be what caused her concussion and brain swelling. They confirmed that Addie was alone in the car. I felt some relief. They then informed me that the accident occurred on Highway 8. Previously, I only knew the part of town where the accident occurred, but not the road. 8? It was on the other side of town and not a place we usually go to. There's no easy access to a cafe or anything like that from Route 8. It's only good for apartments and houses. The police saw my confusion. I explained that I had no idea why she was there. He suggested that perhaps she was going to pick up a friend. I said I would ask one of my wife's friends, specifically Carol, who was asking where Eddie was. I wanted to know if this place had any meaning to her. When Carol arrived at the hospital, I asked her right away. She turned pale. What the hell is this? Carol, I need you to tell the whole truth. She responded with phrases straight out of a crime movie. I'll tell you, Jim, I promise, but not here. You have to understand, I'm not your enemy. In fact, I'm your ally. I'm trying to take care of you, not her, right now. Eddie could have been in a terrible accident, in a coma, with broken legs, but she has an entire army to help her. You need someone to take care of you. I wasn't sure what to think about this. Carol was quiet, not mysterious. Carol, I will believe what the doctor told me originally, that Addie should recover, except perhaps her legs. Addie may lose the beauty of her legs, but not their functionality. Plastic surgeons can make them beautiful again, but not that beautiful. Like before, that doesn't matter. I'll stay with her. I love her. I couldn't help but sigh at the accidental irony. Yeah, if only Addie could be like she used to be. Yes, just like before, Carol added thoughtlessly. A few nights later, I was in Eddie's room, sleeping in a different bed there in case she regained consciousness. The nurses often covered me with a curtain when they were working with my wife. Perhaps cleaning the lines and catheters seemed cruel and insensitive in front of her husband. Perhaps they didn't want to wake me. In any case, I would wake up and find the curtain closed. Late one night, when the nurses had already done their work, a man entered the room. There were male nurses and orderlies, so it wasn't unusual. I didn't show that I was awake, not wanting to scare or embarrass someone who was just trying to do their job. This man didn't notice me at all. That's part of how I realized it was truly terrible. He stopped at Eddie's bed and looked at her for a long time, then apologized to her, even though she was in a coma. He said with tears in his eyes that it was all his fault, because she was coming to him. He began to cry openly. Everyone was wondering why she was where the accident happened, and now I had a terrible answer. I prayed that the situation would change. I felt like I was in a wounded plane, rapidly falling, begging it with all my might, even with my voice, to rise, rise. The man continued to talk, crying more and more. He said all sorts of things, that he didn't want to hurt Eddie's family, that he didn't know who was safe to talk to, because he didn't know who knew what. He said that in this vacuum of information, he simply held away. This is for him to hate. Then he thought about the night nurses. They might not know what her husband looked like. He decided to come and stay, then leave for work early. He was sorry it took him so long. It hurt him to be away, and he was sure it hurt Eddie too. But the plan worked, and the nurses allowed him into her room that night. Maybe they think I'm Jim. I'll only come to you, Eddie, at night. I don't want to hurt you any more than I already have. But I'll never leave you, Eddie. I know you love me. Then he actually burst into tears. This last remark may have been illusory on his part, but it sounded straight from the soul. Everything he said, the victim, not wanting to hurt her family or her embarrassment, sounded like a man sacrificing in pain. Finally, he squeezed out, "You know that I love you too, but I will only come at night." I saw him on his knees, his hands on the bed, his fingertips touching my wife's motionless hand. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned his head and saw me standing behind him. Even in the dark, I could see his eyes widen in fear. I left my hand on his shoulder. This should have been taken as a sign of reassurance. But when he tried to get up, he realized that I was also holding him in place. I wanted to make sure we understood each other before the punches started flying. I quietly told him, "It will be a bit crowded here, even at night." He tried to get up. I let him lift up a few inches before I pressed down on his shoulder again, bringing him back down. He tried to rise up against me when I said, "Too tight, just like my marriage for the last year." His knees buckled. I was surprised that he showed up. I think it said something good about him. What should a husband say about a lover that he is glad that the guy is not only interested in his wife's body, that he wants all of her? My concern was not with him, but with my wife. You see, I'm not one to tolerate cheating, and I'm not a small person. I think not. I'm sure everyone would have assumed that I would kill him. If there had been another guy, I realized that this guy was there, but I was afraid of the 1% chance that my wife loved him. That's why I didn't kill him. Not killed yet. To do this prematurely would mean that Eddie would never come back to me. My wife didn't know that I knew. But Rob, his name was Rob, now knew exactly what I knew. I wasn't sure how it would end. I had a plan, but the accident made serious adjustments, and her romance seemed unimportant. Only Eddie and her survival were important. This other terrible situation faded into the background. Now I had to deal with her and Rob. Call me a bitch, but Eddie is my heart. She doesn't just own it. She is my heart. Was I ready to forgive this? Yes, if we really put this behind us, with Addie leaving the affair and Rob behind. I was going to end it all. The damn affair had plenty of time to end, and it didn't. So it was time for me to intervene, but the accident changed everything. I made a quick decision. A fight in a hospital room would only be appropriate in a James Bond movie, but not when my wife is between life and death. And I wanted to know more about this man. His coming here, what he said, the damn novel had much more depth than I thought. I forced my face to show that I wasn't a threat, well, at least not an immediate threat to him, although I did increase his anxiety. "Come to the other side of the room and talk to me, Rob." He turned pale, realizing that I knew much more about him than he thought. We talked. It was a unique experience. Once he realized that I actually planned to let him survive this encounter, it was both enlightening and heartbreaking. Rob came back 2 more of the next 4 nights. We talked. He didn't want to love me, but he had respect. As his respect deepened, although he tried to hide it, I noticed that he was looking at me with something that made my blood run cold. Pity. I never imagined a scenario where I would lose to him. I didn't allow myself to think that way. But now the possibility arose, although it was still a remote possibility compared to the possibility that my dear Addie might die. We were both a little surprised, but encouraged that the other person actually cared about Eddie. I was not an abuser, and he was not a ladies' man. He knew that I still hated the very fact of his existence, if not him. If we came face to face, it would be a short encounter both physically and emotionally. I had the advantage in everything, and it was obvious to both of us. But damn it, he still looked at me with pity. He knew how much I loved my wife. He noticed this, saying it was obvious to everyone, even in the way the nurses briefed me. I said, "Nurse, it's ironic that Rob is Eddie's brother, so they let him stay." Yes, it seemed like I had it all figured out, so why was this guy sleeping with my wife? Let me back up to answer the obvious question. I am a successful person. Honestly, I have succeeded where others have failed. I am capable and well-built, so why didn't I kill Rob? A few reasons. I didn't want to go to jail, and I especially wanted to be near Eddie. I wanted to make sure she had a protector when she couldn't protect herself. and I heard Rob say he loved her. Normally, this would be reason enough to ensure that no one ever heard from him again. But Eddie was in a coma, in a state between life and death. It just didn't seem like the right time to pull out the wood chipper. Besides, Eddie's condition left me mentally exhausted, and I was in no condition to commit murder. And here's an even worse reason I could imagine. Maybe Rob's voice could help Eddie get his life back when mine couldn't cope. I had a new plan. I needed information. I actually invited this guy to Eddie's hospital room during the day while friends and family were there. He appreciated that I introduced him as Eddie's friend from work. When I mentioned Rob's name, Eddie's mother made a strange face, as if she was trying to remember something she couldn't immediately remember. She became very suspicious of Rob from then on. It is obvious that she did not know about their affair. I put on this whole show to see who was in the know. As I introduced Rob, I noticed that a few faces, not as many as I thought, made surprised expressions. "This is Rob. He's Eddie's friend from work. Does anyone here know him?" There was my performance in the room. "I think it's very nice of him that he cares enough to come." I looked at him with a face that made him gulp. "I think it's best if you treat him like family." Yes, positive identification of two women with their mouths open, maybe two more, but not sure. I was going to talk to those I had confidence in today. Their reactions were different enough to warrant attention. One seemed stunned by Rob's insolence. The other, Carol, tried to kill him with her gaze. Three of us went to lunch. We took turns doing it. I left the crowd in Eddie's room, including Rob. If he felt guilty there, great. He deserved it. If he really loved her as he said he did, then at least he was with her in the light of day. I quietly told the two women whose reactions to Rob I had noticed that I wanted to have lunch with them alone. I am a large, tall man with what many call a commanding bearing, and people look to me for reassurance and leadership. I never abuse this gift and try not to let people down. I may have been given this gift, but I worked hard to live up to it. My decisions now concerned my own wife. No one questioned my actions in the current emergency, nor did the women to whom I told them they were going to lunch with me. They knew that it was connected with my wife, but they knew nothing else about what this dinner would be. Both women looked at me with wide eyes as I led them down the hallway and out to my car. We sat in a quiet corner of the diner. I didn't waste time. As soon as we sat down, I asked, "Why did you support Rob in his conquest of my wife? Why did you support the destruction of my marriage?" They sat with their mouths open. Carol soon lowered her head, seething with anger. I was truly shocked that Carol was an accomplice. She seemed like a real honest person. I continued, "I'm going to get her back completely. Then I'll deal with him. I can't stand Addie having an affair, let alone an affair. Damn, now that bastard Rob actually has feelings for her. I want a future with her because I never stopped loving her. I hope you support this." I hoped that by letting them know that I knew about my wife's affair and their involvement, I could get honest information from them. They looked at me. Carol chimed in with more than a little emotion in her voice. "Jim, I never wanted to take sides. I was hard on Eddie because of Rob. But you should know, now that everything's out in the open, it's not just physical. It's, well, damn, how can you say that about an affair? I wanted to say that it didn't work. Damn, I can't say that to you. It's not fair to some of us. They go their whole lives, one way or another, and never find a good guy, but she found two." I let disgust and anger seep into my response. I agree with the unfairness too, especially since I was the first and Addie promised me she was no longer on the market. She shouldn't have looked for another good guy finally, regarding Rob. No nice guy has an affair with a married woman. If a voice can express pain, then Carol's voice expressed it. Addie wasn't looking. And oh damn, Jim, you weren't the first. Rob has known her since college. I tried to keep a straight face. It was a shock that Addie had known Rob longer than she had known me. She never mentioned him. Were they dating then? This was new information and quite alarming. They weren't in love, Jim, but they were good friends. On again, off again friends. If you're looking for how the guy got to your wife through your white knight armor, No one could. Rob was already there, inside the gate, when you wrapped your armor up. Around Eddie. He was a confidant and a part of her before you put up walls to protect her. He was no longer her lover, but he was inside the protection, and years later that fact allowed their relationship to develop again. Eddie. Being honest with you and everyone about him moving here and them working together and the death of his parents, well, damn it, everything. I concluded. So her colleague who lost her family was not a woman, although she made that clear to me. Jim, Addie didn't do right by you, but she tried. She had the support to do the right thing, and then, when she failed, to make it right. I frowned every time she wanted to tell you about her very close friend, and I didn't do that. I told her what was what when she started to have more feelings for him and didn't tell you about it. You did a miracle for her and were, wonderful to her family, her friends, and she felt like she couldn't tell you and hurt you. The absolute worst thing about all of this is that if she told you about his problems, you would have accepted him and helped him. I'm sure in the full light of day, their relationship would never have happened. Became love, deeper. I took a huge breath into their broken faces. Love, please no, not from her. Carol shuddered in complete sympathy, but her eyes still burned with anger. Jim, their relationship seemed secret almost by accident because they were ex-lovers. If this fact was widely known in their workplace, it would be more than awkward. When they realized that their past relationship was secret, it allowed their relationship to move into other secret areas that they should never have gone into. Love can grow in the dark. Sometimes it grows stronger precisely because it is illegal. My face probably expressed incredible bitterness. Obviously, something else was affecting him. Surprised, Carol quietly asked, "You would forgive her even for that, wouldn't you?" Why not answer them? They knew about my humiliation before I did. Some people use this as an expression. I truly believe that Eddie is my better half. She is a part of me. I cannot leave her, at least not easily. It would be like an amputation or something. Trying to cut her out of me would probably kill me. However, losing her when she was the one who deceived me also offends my sense of justice. Still, I have to consider that. Considering herself the worse half, dividing us means removing the bad fabric from her. Carol was truly outraged. This is outrageous. You are a good person. As much as I love my friend, she did a bad thing. She did all bad things. I tilted my head, looking into Carol's eyes. So wouldn't love be wonderful if I would still protect her even when she does something bad? Carol was indignant. Even if it hurts you, damn it, Jim, she's doing bad things against you. Yes, as long as she doesn't kill me. I raised my palms, begging them to understand. This is the definition. I can forgive an affair, but not abandonment. I knew I looked miserable. Why hide something? So I told them where my protection of my wife ended. I publicly defined one limit to my love. I believe that love should be defended to the last resort, going down with the ship. When it sinks, you are free to save your life as an individual. But love is too rare a gift to be treated cheaply or carelessly. It is a blessing and not a commodity. The world would be a better place if people understood this. Now women looked at me differently. Carol felt what she had felt before, but now even more strongly. The other woman may have been having an affair at work, perhaps living someone else's life. She didn't know me that well, so it was easy to support the two people she knew, Eddie and Rob. I noticed that her devotion was changing. I took another heavy breath. They looked at me, wondering what it meant. Damn it, if it comes down to it, then let it go. I can't believe I brought him in and made him acceptable to everyone, and she loves him in return. I really thought all the deep feelings were on his part, that he was just an ego trip for her. Of course, I thought that she had affection for him, otherwise she wouldn't. I left my sentence unsaid. In fact, I still find it hard to believe that she even did this. Have an affair. My duty is to protect my wife. I have to give her the opportunity to fix this. I love her, so this is doubly important, but I can't accept it. I find it so hard to believe. I would never have thought of this. If I had realized that she had deep feelings for him, I would have taken him to the quarry and made him leave the city, so that she would understand that it was wrong and stop herself, because I didn't want her to get away with it and ever be exposed to it again. I wanted her medicine to be a vaccine against the behavior happening again. I let the wound fester. I just let the infection grow. I was miserable. I thought I was serving love. Instead, it seems like I was playing games with it. But I still had faith in my wife and best friend, even when she betrayed me. This is an example in itself. I forced myself to lower the significance of her time with Rob before the affair, and not before the complete deception, certainly not before the betrayal. My love blinded me. If I served love poorly, it didn't help me much either. Carol looked at me with big, almost surprised eyes. They were silent for a while until I added, "But she has to stop doing bad things. I won't stand for my humiliation. This is the most disgusting thing a wife can do." Now the women looked almost desperate. They supported Eddie and they supported me, even though they knew it might not work out. It seemed like I needed to speak again. Everything the hell seemed to fall on me. "Okay, don't worry. I'll take care of her. We don't have to worry about anything until she gets better. And for sure Eddie will understand that no one, not even him, can love her like I do. Maybe he's a good guy. But honestly, he didn't try to do the right thing. I try my best to do the right thing for Eddie. However, he wants to steal a married woman. It's bad, and it makes him bad. He should know that if he wasn't special to my wife, I would have sent him to the bottom of the harbor long ago." Carol ventured to comment, I think he knows that. This is the most confusing situation I've ever been involved in. Jim, I want you to remember this. I don't know what's going to happen, but you have to win. There shouldn't be any competition, but if it's all about what's best for Eddie, who loves her more, who's the better man, then you have to win. But Jim, there's the friendship and the past that they have together, and the things that I do. I don't understand. Jim, I'm afraid that if all this was as clear as it should be, this would never have happened in the first place. If you want her, even now, hell, especially now, then it should be you. Two riding off into the sunset together. But I lowered my head. I worked and lived with the assumption that our future was secure. I keep my promises. I promised Eddie my everything until I died. She might stumble, but she can still count on me. That's the point of marriage, right? When one is not strong, the other helps him. She fell, and now she can't walk. I'll carry her if necessary. The women tried to hide it, but they were on the verge of despair. I left. I was going to lose. It was ridiculous. My beloved Addie was hanging between life and death. This is where my focus should be. But if my love was not the force that could save her, then I needed to reconsider my plans. I needed to find something more powerful. What the hell should I do? I was never going to give up on Addie, and the only person who could make me stop working for her was Addie herself. Since she was currently unable to vote, I had to continue as I had always done, trusting that her well-being and destiny depended on me. Eddie needed me. I would fight or die trying. I suddenly stopped, almost causing the two women to collide with my back. Wait, let's talk about looking at things from a different perspective. My brain was swimming. A new idea was taking shape. Maybe this is it. It was grim, but it was an opportunity. I didn't hesitate. I was all in. My prayers were answered. It took a while, but my Eddie came out of her coma. She was atrophied and weak, but she seemed whole. Everything that was Eddie's essence was there. Everything that was weak and damaged grew from this essence and could be restored to a great extent. I was and remain extremely grateful for this. I was grateful even months later. We became a universe of two, with occasional visits from friends and family. I tried not to choke her, doing everything I could for her without crossing the line. But the poor woman couldn't walk, couldn't roll over at first, had trouble speaking, which quickly passed, although she was still out of breath from talking for a long time. I took care of her and looked after her. Even cleansing it was a joy compared to not having it. I was willing to take this deal every hour of every day for the rest of my life and consider it the best deal I had ever been offered. I made sure that she could quickly find me in any room if I was not nearby. Addie felt comforted by my efforts to protect her. She told me that she needed me. Only one thing could make me even happier. I was thrilled to see Addie getting stronger each week. The rehabilitation was grueling. Addie fell several times, but I always managed to catch her. There was a nervous tension, waiting on a razor's edge for something, anything, to go wrong. She needed to do everything herself, but I was prepared so that she would not receive further damage during her heroic struggle. However, being so attentive without being intrusive was as tiring as it was difficult. I slept well at night from emotional exhaustion. God bless Eddie, she noticed it. Here she was, in pain, in a body that had once been a tool she wielded with ease, but was now much like a prison cell. However, she accepted the challenge and met it. And she looked at me in awe, thanking me for what I do for her, saying that she couldn't do it without me, and with tears in her eyes that she never wants to disappoint me. After a while, she began to make progress almost every day. She began to enjoy trips to the rehab center. We started calling everyone there by name. Addie tried to rebuild her muscles and regain the movement she had lost. Very soon, it will be time to use what she has recovered. She tried to support her weight by holding on to the handrails that lined the narrow passage. If her legs couldn't handle it, she had to distribute the weight to her arms and shoulders. Addie noticed that I was standing where I always stood, a little out of her peripheral vision, a little behind, ready to catch her, but out of sight so as not to distract her. She said to me, looking over her shoulder, never letting go of the handrails, "Jim, I want to try to walk, not just get my legs to work. I'm not sure I'm ready, but I want to try. I need something to get through the pain. I need you to be where I can see you and be inspired by you. I need something worthwhile to break through the fear and pain. I need my final destination. Will you do this for me?" I hesitated to let her fall, although I could not deny her this desire. This was what we were striving for. I was amazed that I meant so much to her despite what she had done before the accident. We've talked, but nothing significant yet, focusing on Eddie's rehabilitation. I pushed my pain aside, focusing on hers. I thought she was doing the same thing. From a rehabilitation standpoint, it was a big moment, but for me, her vision of me as her ultimate goal was manna from heaven. This was the result I wanted, although I did not allow myself to hope for it. Addie looked at me as I took my seat at the end of the aisle. I smiled, and she looked at my face and melted a little. Her head tilted, and she couldn't help but blush. Then she became very focused and goal-oriented. She nodded to herself, or to me, I don't know which. She held onto the railings tightly. She took a step, letting out a groan of pain that turned into a low howl as she moved her other leg, putting her weight on it. Her eyes narrowed, but never left mine. Addie almost fell over, bending over as she moved her other leg, putting her weight on it, obviously in a lot of pain. Her eyes closed, but she calmed down when she saw me. She gritted her teeth and pushed herself out with her legs, standing up fully again, letting out a muffled moan that I'm sure she'd never heard. She gave herself a weak smile, the one you feel inside, and which your face simply imitates without conscious thought. One step, then another, then another. Tears streamed down her cheeks, which glowed red with triumph. On the last two steps, I realized that her moan was no longer a sound. It was my name. Addie stood trembling with tension. She stood trembling and smiling. She waited until she saw my proud face, and then her pain seemed to go away. She barely waited for my arms to wrap around her before throwing herself around my neck. She laughed so sincerely that it warmed my soul. Addie directed me, breathlessly, "Put me on the floor and lie with me." She never removed her hands from my neck. "I love you. I love you. You never gave up on me. You love me so much." All I could answer was, "You walked again, Eddie." She placed one hand on my cheek and wrapped the other around my neck, pulling me towards her. "And I probably don't deserve it. You know that better than anyone. But thanks to you, I'm walking again. I wanted to give this to you as a tribute. You admire what I do well, but I simplify everything so that I keep things in front of me. I never see that I'm losing sight. Yes, I achieve the goal, but I never keep track of how much it costs. I'm afraid of how many victories I might have. Pirhik. In this case, if I wanted to walk again, I had to find a way to overcome the pain. I wanted to walk, but I wanted to honor you, which cost me much more than avoiding any pain. Your help to me is completely different. It's as if you took the hot rod every time. You do this because you love me and refuse to let me down. When I failed you so badly, so tragically, and so completely, your love for me has always inspired me. You want me to be better. Whatever it is, you don't hate me or leave. You did all this for me. I wanted you to see what you mean to me. Oh, Jim, I hope this doesn't cloud what I've already said. I swear it's true. I've always loved you, even oh, I'm so sorry. Addie hugged me tightly and didn't feel me pull away as she feared. At that moment, her sobs changed. Strangely, I wasn't sure if she was happy, in pain, or upset. I couldn't read her emotions. Along with the way she phrased her thoughts, it made me feel bad. This was the first time we touched on this terrible topic in such depth. I looked around the room at the assembled rehabilitation specialists and staff, glowing with Eddie's triumph and the obviously happy couple. I didn't want to ruin their excitement or ruin this joyful moment, so I decided to leave it for later. Instead, I enjoyed watching Addie take her first new steps toward me, just as I remembered her walking down the aisle to become my bride. We were driving home after her first walk when she spoke in a quiet, firm voice that just caught my attention. We haven't discussed this yet, not directly. I tried. You always talked me out of it, saying I needed to focus on getting better. You. You always know better, but it didn't seem fair. Jim, my body is healing. It needs to get stronger and remember what it can do. In my mind, this was the last major barrier. I know I still have a long way to go, but I feel like I'll definitely get there now. So it seems I need to turn my attention to what I wish I had all along, back to us. Can I start now, Jim? I nodded, not knowing what else to say. Addie said, "Remember when I woke up in the hospital? Maybe not the first time, but the first time I was clear from the fog. I could move, my thoughts were confused, and I thought of you first. I think that's okay, but I'm not sure." "Why do you say that?" Eddie's expression was determined. I was scared. I was hurt, compromised and scared. You were always my knight. I was in trouble, and I needed you if I was in trouble. When I saw you, I was like, so happy. Of course, I was in trouble, but when I saw you, I knew that no matter how bad it was also as good as it could be, because you would do it like that. You always protect me. I think I'm too good at taking from you. And what I saw soon after only confirmed this proposal in another, more insidious sense. You protect me well, and I take well from you. I was shocked to see Rob. I was amazed, then I had to remember why. It was an ominous feeling. I don't think about Rob consciously. Isn't that weird? I took this as a sign that her affection for him was not true love. It's just always there somewhere, like white noise, background radiation. I took this as a good sign too, as Eddie was always on my mind. Then I looked at you again, and it all came flooding back. I felt really, really lousy, small, even cheap, although that last one was a little unclear. I was definitely ashamed. I felt a wave of unworthiness that I'd never felt before with such intensity. Everyone knew something was wrong, Eddie. You threw up. She looked at me very suspiciously and appraisingly. Jim, about Rob. I didn't want to, but I felt myself lower my head. Anyway, I caught it quickly. Did I make it clear? I think this day has to come sooner or later. But why could I not enjoy this one day of triumph without thinking about that long-forgotten but never defeated scoundrel? Jim, Rob, and I were lovers, back in college. The last three words were added hastily. I glanced at her just in time to see her face turn towards the side window. I caught a glimpse of her broken expression reflected in the glass. You should have known that. I should have told you about him a long time ago. He shouldn't have been in the hospital. I'm sorry, I tried to tell you many times. My husband should know my past, and then it became real. Each time I put off the story, because how could I explain my failure without telling you until now? With each new step, I wanted to tell you, except that each last step seemed so terribly accusatory. You're not following me. I missed the next step. Damn, Jim, I really screwed up. Was this the moment she decided to be honest? Do I want this now? Her eyes were wild. She was scared to death. Addie turned to me. Jim, I love you. I'm afraid of losing you. I can't imagine life without you, but I did something terrible. The words flew out of her as if from a martyred soul. She knew she couldn't stop there. She deliberately painted herself into a corner. She didn't want to chicken out. She studied every feature of my face. Jim, you deserve only the best. You are the best, and I don't deserve you. The answer was sincere. Eddie, there is nothing in this world that I want more than you. Never say that again. I wasn't strict with her often. I couldn't restrain myself this time. Her eyes were wide open, listening to my sincerity. She leaned over and grabbed my arm, pressing her face against my shoulder as I drove. I should have told you. I actually misled you. Remember my coworker who lost his family? Well, that coworker wasn't she, it was Rob. Those dinners to support the bereaved were real, but they were with Rob. I should have told you dozens of times, maybe hundreds, but every time I was afraid of hurting you, knowing that I was spending time with. Rob's parents died in the accident, sick. His father was driving her home from dialysis when it happened. I don't know what he told you, but he shouldn't have been in the hospital. His actions weren't always honorable. She quickly added, he's not a bad man, Jim, but he's not a man like you. Eddie looked into my eyes for a long time. You have more discipline than any man I've ever met. You really think about what you have to do. Once you choose a path, you take all the wounds and blows it dictates, never deviating for your own comfort or safety. When troubles happen along the way, you take the brunt of it, knowing that you can handle it. And you always achieve victory time after time. You share it generously, allowing others to enjoy the triumph and illumination, which you yourself are not looking for, striving only for a successful result for everyone. Addie seemed to be searching for words. Jim, Rob is more like an ordinary person. He is flesh and blood and has difficulty controlling his passions. I have never known a man more passionate than you, but you always remain in control. For the rest of us, it's hard. You're like the driver who has the fastest time on the track. He was so smooth that he almost didn't notice how fast the other drivers were going around the corners and overdoing it when they made the wrong line, the car lurching from side to side. The tires squeal. They seem to be going very fast, but their times are no match for a driver who does it easily. I know it's not always easy for you, but you make it look like it, instilling great confidence in others. But we rely on you too often, pushing things to the limit. Addie sighed heavily. I just want to say that I appreciate you. You've always let me see behind the curtain, but sometimes even I act like a normal person and take you for granted, relying on you and your strength more than I should. I know that you would spend every ounce of your strength to satisfy or protect me. I will never meet another man like you. Compared to you, Rob is drowning in imperfection, seems relaxed and undisciplined. This is not true, compared to you. Most men, Rob stands out and stands tall, but he will always live in your shadow, and this is not fair for him or for you. It is the strength of your nature. I still didn't know what to say to such comments. I remained silent, hoping Eddie would talk about his relationship with Rob, hoping that was in the past, and that she had learned her lesson to never go near such a flame again. I wanted to know where I stood with her. Flattering words did not tell me what I wanted to know. Addie was very serious and tried to hold back her emotions. Rob, you navigate a minefield and create a clear path for those who follow you, taking extra precautions to protect those you love, never letting others see how hurt you are. By doing this, you don't let them see how much you suffer, how deeply their failures hurt you. You take on the pain for them and do the right thing for them, even when they don't do the right thing for you. You love and believe in. Even when you are wounded, you do it as if it were easy for you, which puts you at risk again. Eddie's tears increased. Her hands were shaking, her voice was tense. I'm trying to thank you for choosing me, for protecting me, and mostly for loving me. I want to beg for your forgiveness for your weakness. Can you forgive me? I said I can, not that I will. We haven't gotten to that point yet. Baby, I can forgive you almost anything. Eddie smiled through a playful laugh. I thought your love for me had no limits. Her confession, or whatever she could bear for now, was over. Addie playfully asked, "What are these things that you can't forgive me?" "Killing me or us," I replied matter-of-factly. She turned pale. Addie really looked scared. It's one thing to tell your husband, who adores you, that you had a lover before you met him. It's quite another to tell him that you took a lover after marriage. I smiled as I explained softly, "If any of this happens, I'll already be dead, so I simply won't be able to do anything, including forgiveness. You'll have to live with my blood on your hands. But if you're honest and loyal, there's little we can't do. Overcome if this is behind you." I smiled, trying to add some humor, but she knew it was true. Honestly, sincerely, and deadly true. We arrived at our house. I took my time to give her time to compose herself as I walked around the car to help her out. I sent a signal. I would be hurt, but she could tell me about her recent affair when she was ready. This could be forgiven then. Only one person can grant forgiveness, and only one person can earn it, but it often takes two. Addie was exhausted. Her first walk in almost a year and a partial confession took all her strength. It was easier for me to just take her out of the car and carry her inside. I smiled and beamed. Addie quickly removed her protective barriers and let go of her anxiety, joining my joy. I reminded her as we walked inside that her cheerful trainers, who had stepped aside to give us some time, had said that with the dedication she had shown and the energy it took to get to this point, she was sure to have the best possible rehabilitation, restoration of all movements that are possible. They assured that with use and exercise, strength would not be a problem. I beamed at Eddie, and her bottom lip trembled in response. My joy seemed to be contagious as she wrapped her arms around my neck and loudly proclaimed that she loved me again. Safe in her home, exhausted from the exertion, the pain she had overcome, the triumph of her achievement, and perhaps in no small part from the release of her pent-up feelings of guilt and love, Addie fell asleep. I watched her sleep peacefully on the couch for a few minutes, thanking God for her return before I carried her upstairs to bed. A couple of hours passed before Addie came back to life. She saw that she was still in her gym clothes with a light blanket over it. She smiled and asked, "Did you want to take advantage of me?" She was beaming again. "To be honest, I didn't want to wake you up, but I'll gladly do it for you." I replied playfully, "Can I hold on to your neck? I think I could stand like this, and you could take a shower with me." Then she became shy, or maybe I don't want it. She said this thoughtfully. Then she winced, her eyes widened, and she quickly added with a feeling of guilt, "Not yet." Her bottom lip curled up against her teeth to match her guilty, scared eyes. "Oh, Jim, I was just afraid you'd see my scars and deformities. Maybe I'm not attractive to you anymore." I told her softly, "Eddie, I saw all this even when you still had pins and pins." She blushed deeply. "Yeah, but I don't think you've seen more than a quarter of me at one time since the accident. To be honest, I haven't worked up the courage to look at myself. It's okay if you don't want to shower with me. I would have held on to you, and you would have been in an even worse situation. And you must be tired after everything you did for me today in therapy, then carrying me here. I don't remember how we left the car." She beamed at me again. "But whenever you see fit, I'll be waiting for you to undress me." I hesitated before answering, "Baby, please, you had a great day. I know because I've dealt with your temporary body condition and scars that this was real progress. You're in much better shape than you were, but I'm afraid that you will be afraid if you see it, and this is not the course to follow now. All the worst-looking things are already fading away. They are shadows of what was, and will soon be shadows of what is now. What you did today, and use that energy to move forward." Addie shook her head, not realizing she had made the motion. "Wow, you are something. This shower may not be the pleasure I wanted to give you, but I would love to be vertical and stand under the water with you, pressed tightly against you." We exchanged genuine warm smiles. We took a shower. I know it was painful for Eddie, but she was all joy and light. The carefree laugh I heard from her at our clumsiness was a huge reward. She was my beloved wife. Eddie is back. I thank the Almighty that she was not lost. Addie became very serious as she pushed her fingers through my hair, looking into my eyes. I can't understand you, your love and devotion. She turned pale as she said, I don't deserve this. It's a fact we both know all too well. I need you in so many ways. Dry us or leave us wet, but please put me on the bed and join me. Baby, I'm not sure your thighs can handle my weight much longer. One of them has been rebuilt. I'm a big man. She nodded, but never looked away. Please, please, Jim, I need it, and you need it. You've been deprived of too much in too many ways for too long. Please. I didn't think missionary would be an option because of my weight. I knew going on my knees wouldn't work. I dried Eddie off and kissed her as she sobbed softly. I carried her to the edge of the bed and laid her there. From the way Addie used the word love, I knew she wasn't talking about our physical union. I told her, I will always love you. This is who I am. There was a strange urgency in her words, although she seemed completely sincere. I want to be everything to you, everything you want me to be. Even now, how long has it been with you, and you're holding back so as not to hurt me? How? How can you love me so much, care about me so much? At the end were the unspoken words, after what I did. This is going to sound weird. I'm not sure Addie knew she was actually saying those words out loud. Strange, but that's exactly what I thought then. I remembered her analogy with a smooth driver. Then she said the strangest thing. Please, God, let me get pregnant. Please. I thought about her pregnancy request. It sounded strange, but what kind of man is going to take umbrage as his wife, fervently asking God to allow her to bear him a child? I slept, not yet peacefully, but more contentedly than I had slept in months. When I woke up the next morning, I heard her disappointment. I stayed where I was until my bladder forced me to go to the bathroom. She rarely prayed out loud for my child, but when she thought her days were auspicious, she repeatedly worked to get pregnant with my child. This brings up another point. After the accident and after the surgeries, Eddie's women's days became less frequent and less regular. Her body seemed to have lost its energy to repair itself, taking it from other places, as if copying itself. Why did it occur to me to complain? I was a happy man. My wife is back. We lived in a universe of two. Her family and friends saw the way she looked at me, smiled, patted me on the arm or back, and hugged me as I walked them down the stairs at the end of their visit. There was a serious problem in our marriage. Most men would have left. The situation was made worse by her accident, but I persevered and, through my devotion, prevailed. My father-in-law told me in front of his wife, a man accepts all this work after being betrayed, knowing that all he can get back at him is a scarred and damaged version of the woman who betrayed him. He is wonderful. I love my daughter, but I've never been prouder than I was of my son. He was talking about me. I was deeply touched by this compliment. My mother-in-law hugged me fiercely. I still told him off for saying those things about Eddie. He said, at the end of the day, she is my daughter. I would die for her. But sometimes you have to tell the truth so others don't think you're trying to hide it. I stand by every word. I reminded him that Addie was my wife, and I didn't want to hear things like that. They put their hands on me and smiled. Even rehab, no matter how grueling, was now filled with happy thoughts. There were more victories than failures, and we did it together. Addie always looked at me in awe at the end of the most intense classes. I wanted love, not trepidation, but in many ways we had never been closer. Things had never been better. I thanked again that I was allowed to dig deeper within myself as much as I could to stay and support her or not kill Rob. All the lonely suffering was worth it. Everything is fine. Eddie was alive and mine. My world was complete. This went on for several months. I truly may have been the most contented person on earth. I knew things weren't perfect. Addie hadn't come to terms with her guilt. Of course, She didn't fully confess either. We both knew what she did, but I didn't have the details. Not how long or intense, and certainly not why. I wasn't sure what else I could do to convince her that she was forgiven, that I didn't want to think about it anymore. I just wanted her. Even when I spoke the real words, they seemed to distort something inside her. I decided that I just needed to give her time, and if I had to go through this weird ritual of hers until she forgave herself, I thought I could get over it. Something had been bothering Eddie for weeks, simmering beneath the surface, and now it was more intense. On the way back from her ongoing rehab, she barely spoke. When I momentarily placed my hand on the center console, she grabbed it and pulled it to her lips. She then held him in her lap with both hands. Her movements were full of despair. I drove home with one hand on the wheel. Although Addie still needed help getting out of the car from time to time, she was getting around quite well. She walked inside and headed to the living room. This was unusual because after strenuous efforts, she almost always preferred the kitchen or shower. So, something was really different. She looked up and saw me standing there. She jumped in surprise, then smiled, shaking her head. "You must have a radar. You can read my mind and know when I need you." She stopped all movements, just absorbed me, looking at me, although something was wrong about it. "Jim, can I talk to you, please?" I replied, trying to sound cheerful. "Always. There's never a bad time to talk to you. I want to know everything you're thinking." Her head dropped. I didn't want to hurt her by bringing up our past problems. She knew I didn't mean to hurt. She smiled gratefully. Her eyes radiated love. "You always knew when I needed you, and you always knew what I was thinking before. And then, everything changed. It was because you trusted me. I used that trust to hide the truth from you. You never didn't see my wrongdoings because you had no reason to look. Until that moment, I never gave you a reason to lose faith in me." Her tears were flowing now. "I'm so sorry. I'm terribly, terribly sorry. I want to talk about this, but I need to say something else first." Addie took my hand. I've never met a more wonderful person, and I mean it. I'm honored to be by your side. I'll come back to that later. Rehab, everything you've done for me, you were tireless in your support, unshakable in your confidence, boundless in your love. There were moments, I think it was something like childbirth, when the pain was so intense that it was necessary to translate it into emotions to relieve some of the tension. I screamed and cursed during rehab, sometimes at you. I don't think I ever called you names or blamed you, but your face was the one I screamed at, and you always responded with a caring, loving expression to calm me down. This time you absorbed every offensive attack, reproach, and injury in order to ease my pain. And in light of that, well, we'll come back to this. Addie tried to find the words. "Jim, I understand that sometimes the pain has caused me to cling to you so tightly that I left bruises. I also left more than a few scratches on you. I see them when you take off your clothes at night, or lately when we shower or make love. I'm sorry. Your help cost me not only time, love, and energy, but I hurt you physically, and I think I'm trying to do that now. But even more, I want to thank you. I just can't express how grateful I am. You were amazing." I clung to her words. Was it? In the past tense? Addie looked like she was choking. No, this is not. Right, a lot of things are wrong. I hate it, and myself more than a little." She fell silent for a while. "You even gave me time and space. You should know, my friends and family judged me for. Rob, you even allowed him to come to the hospital. I can't believe your generosity and mercy. I can't, I never will. And I never will. You've done more for me than anyone has ever done. I want you to know that I know that, Jim." God bless me. This wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. Since we were clearing the air, I tried to explain. "I let him come to the hospital at night so he could avoid your family. I didn't want them to hurt you. Also, Eddie, I didn't see the point in you hurting them. I wasn't the one to tell them. Honestly, I don't know how they found out." She turned away and nodded before adding, "And his coming to sit next to me, as well as his existence, hurt you." Addie swallowed before quietly saying, I understand that you were already sitting next to my bed, spending every night next to me, and practically every waking minute you could. And then he showed up at night. That must have been terrible for you. Jim. Not as much as the fact that he kept coming to you after you woke up, which meant you wanted his visits. Eddie's face contorted in pain, and I added, to make it worse, and I understand you're still in a relationship with him. Her mouth fell open. She was like a deer in headlights. I guess the shock is that I rediscovered it. I know you were on the phone with him when I left. I raised my hand to stop her questions or objections. No, I didn't check. I didn't try to read your messages and emails. You either love me or you don't. If there were things you wanted me to know, you would have told me. Unfortunately, I also know that you are hiding things from me. I didn't want to admit it, but Rob had to know that you wanted his visits after you woke up in the hospital, otherwise he would have stopped coming. Since I never heard him ask you directly, it probably meant you communicated through your friends or family until you could arrange his visits yourself. There must be something about me that people like betray. Once you felt better, you kept doing it through your phone, text, or whatever. Her chest heaved heavily. She looked at me in bewilderment. It's not that I didn't know you were having an affair. I talked to your lover, for God's sake. I made excuses for him to the people who love you, and I treated you despite it because I love you. Eddie's eyes were huge. I could barely hear her breathing. She seemed to understand that I knew how often she saw him before the accident. I think she thought I was thinking about a momentary fling, not a romance, and certainly not that I considered their messages to be a continuation of their romance. I knew he hadn't slept with her since the accident. He hadn't been around her long enough, but sex was only part of the betrayal. What else could be the messages between changing lovers? The only exception would be a message to him saying, "It's over and I never want to see you again." I paused for myself and to let Eddie calm down. I was calm as I continued. You just said I showed you mercy. Yes, I did. Because I wanted it, because you needed it, and because I need you in my life. Recently, your affair with Rob resumed again, despite my devotion to you. I came home shopping for us and heard you talking on the phone. I walked up the stairs, rejoicing at your joyful voice. I was surprised what friend you were talking to only. To hear the flirtatious tone in your voice when you say his name. I just came back down, giving you what you wanted. You weren't healed yet. Joy helps healing. I didn't mean to ruin your joy at that moment. Although I admit I was half dead when I got to the bottom of the stairs. It killed me that I didn't fill you with that joy because if I did, you wouldn't need it. Knowing that you probably called him as soon as I left was the icing on the cake. You have no idea how many tears I shed for you. I cried because I loved you so much, because you were in terrible pain, you were in a coma, and you gave half of your heart to him. Don't tell me otherwise. I hear you joy when you talk to him, and I see that it is less when you are with me. I wasn't angry at her, I was sad about the situation. Addie was quick to respond, Jim, I'm so sorry. It didn't have to be this way, I hate it. I want you to be happy. And Jim, if this means anything to you, I want you. I really do. Eddie turned away, seeing my skepticism. She forced herself to look at me again. My voice remained level, although it became less tolerant. I'm going to let go of my emotions. This has to come to an end, Eddie. You have to ask yourself if you hate this enough, and if you're sorry enough to tell that damn bastard to go away forever and leave us in peace. I gave you enough time to tell him to leave. I gave you more than enough time for you to understand who loves you more and better. I want to see love in your eyes again, not just respect and admiration. I turned and left. I'm fed up with this. When Eddie finally made the right choice, I decided that I would make sure Rob never bothered us again. When I'm done with him, there won't even be a body left. Those who say revenge isn't fun have simply set the wrong parameters for their post-local life or simply haven't invested enough in their revenge. I was going to enjoy this to the fullest. Later, I heard Addie on the phone crying. I hoped this was the end. Finally, complete restoration for my family. I have suffered a lot and given a lot, but if you have ever felt true love, you will not doubt it. If you haven't felt it, it will be completely incomprehensible. My heart deserved joy. I deserve it. Addie was an individual, but she was also my wife, and we were partners, although that partnership had been one-sided for too long. I saw this conversation as a matter of course and as a bomb. Still, I admit, the damn situation had so twisted me that I had no remorse for eavesdropping in the hallway. Rob, no, that won't work. No, you don't understand. No, he's better than you. No, Rob, that's not what I meant. Jim is better than me too. Rob, I was going to, but I can't. This is his house, our home. You were too intrusive in the hospital, and Jim even took care of you. Fought with my family to protect you, fighting his pain over your very existence. I am a married woman, and they all protect my marriage as well. It must be. I know we didn't ask for this to happen. I know what we share. Rob, I know it's been a long time. Damn it, Rob. Jim comes in sometimes when I'm talking to you, and he knows. Who is this, fortunately in my voice? This is not just a slap in the face, this is a spit in his face. He is my partner, giving his all, and you want me to force him to let you into our house, so that you can be with me. I only heard Eddie's side of the conversation, but it sounded incredible to the point of anger. Fine, she protected me, she protected us. Let this bastard show himself for what he is. Yes, this may finally be the end. I continued to listen. Rob, I'm walking again. I'm getting stronger. I don't know why you two stayed with me. My legs, which were so beautiful, aren't beautiful anymore. I'm going to have cosmetic surgery to make them look more normal, but they will never be my best asset again. No, Rob, I can't. I can't. I owe him something. He did everything. Rob, try to understand. You want to come here. You want to be with me. You love me and want to see me, but as soon as you come here, you will strive to send Jim away. No, you don't understand. You have to understand. Jim can kill you. I felt a pause on his part. He probably didn't want to hear the woman he loved tell him that his rival was better and could kill him. I'm sure he felt the same way I did when I heard my wife telling another man to stay away, not because she loved me, but because he might get hurt. Addie spoke to Rob again. There is no doubt that the only reason you are still alive is because Jim loves me. Now she exploded in anger. Don't ever say that again. If you had pointed a gun at him, he would have taken it from you and shoved it down your throat. He doesn't have to put up with all this, all that I did. He took it all out of me. Because of how much he loves me. That's what keeps you alive. He doesn't want to make you a martyr to me. He doesn't want his actions to break any part of my heart, even the traitorous part. Think about it, Rob. You think about yourself. He thinks about me. Jim loves me as completely as possible. In fact, it goes beyond my understanding, which undermines what he deserves, and in fact, curses me. Me that you won't want to touch me if you see me. No, I won't let you come here. It wasn't nearly as definitive as I wanted, but I thought the hammer was about to fall. And he fell. So, honey, you'll have to wait to see me again until I can go out on my own. I don't remember anything she said after that. Yes, the hammer fell, pinning me in place. I just left the house. Addie didn't know I was back from running errands, and she didn't seem to particularly need my presence either. In a daze, I went to visit Eddie's friend Carol and told her what I had overheard. I just had to tell someone else before I talked to my wife. I couldn't let the message overwhelm me as I tried to reach the messenger. I needed a trial version. When Carol heard what happened, she gasped loudly in the cafe where we met. Then she actually started crying. She said something about how she wanted to believe in this world. She knew it wasn't perfect, but it could be beautiful, except when it was impossible to see it as anything other than hell. I had to agree. I asked Carol to go to my friend, my wife, and sit with her because I didn't want to be away so long that she would again pollute my love for her while I was talking to her parents. Carol agreed. We separated to attend to our unpleasant duties. When I told them about the situation, Eddie's parents seemed just as heartbroken as I was. I told them, if Rob wins this day and wins her heart, I understand that Addie is your daughter, so I won't see you much after this. That's a tragedy in itself. I love you guys. That bastard will never be our son, Eddie's father exclaimed. So, will you banish your daughter for Christmas? I asked with great sympathy, pointing out their problem. Yes, her father said immediately. I saw Eddie's mother's heartbreak. I put my hand on Eddie's father's shoulder. You know what the worst part of this is, Dad? It wasn't lost on me that I might have called him Daddy for the last time. He's not a bad person. Really, think of a man who's in love with a woman and serves her best by staying away. It's not easy for him. I checked on him. He has no history of misogyny. In fact, past acquaintances said that he always talked about the one who left until he got married. He then devoted himself entirely to his wife. After her death, he transferred to another department because everything around him reminded him of her. This is what I don't like. He chose to translate here. I want to be closer to my wife. Apparently, something separated them then, which they both regretted. I don't think it matters now. Something that seemed insurmountable in youth that is nonsense in adulthood, or cheating, if you'll allow the pun. Eddie is an honest woman, but she decided to discredit herself, rather than the alternative of separating her from Rob. My mother-in-law said, "But Jim, I talked to him at the hospital, thanks to you, by the way. I finally remembered where I heard about him before. He dated Eddie in the past. As a man, he's probably not bad, but he's not you. What you have done for our daughter throughout our marriage, especially after this accident, and if I understand correctly, since you found out about her betrayal, is simply beyond praise. Rob wouldn't be Eddie's choice." She practically begged me to agree with her. I was hoping for that too. I don't know what else I could have done. I hoped that what I did would be more than enough. But it might not be enough, and you needed to know that. We all need to prepare for that possibility. It's funny, but I feel guilty for not giving her the benefit of the doubt. I felt this way all this time, and every time I was spat in the face for my attention. We looked at each other, feeling helpless in front of the train heading towards the destroyed bridge. I drove home slowly. I needed to clear my head. I loved driving, so it was a nice escape in the eye of the hurricane, waiting for its walls to come. When I got home, Carol heard me and flew down the stairs. Sobbing, she hugged me. "Take care of yourself, Jim. I hope you can be happy now." I had no idea what happened to cause Carol's actions, and I couldn't tell through her sobs whether her message foreshadowed something good or bad. She pushed through past me, quickly running away from my house. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, where my wife was also crying. Addie looked at me with a broken heart. Jim, my good friend Carol, out of love for me, just gave me the lecture of a lifetime. She is lonely in life, and I have the most devoted and capable loving husband in the world. I would die for a man who would care for her even a small part of how you love me. I know that I was terrible to you. I wanted, I yearned, I prayed to become better. Addie paused for a moment, shaking her head sadly. Carol had just finished talking to me when my parents called. They said that you were with them, and that you heard my conversation with Rob. I thought that Carol knew about it too, but decided not to tell me, thinking that it's better to try to reach me with a different tact than through guilt for telling the truth. My parents happily used the ammunition Carol left behind. They said you were ecstatic, thinking you heard me tell Rob to leave, and were almost to the bedroom door when you heard me agreeing to see him later. Jim, I was hoping to see him in person because... Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Please, Jim, believe in me a little more, and forgive me for what I'm about to say. I hope with every fiber that you will be happy to some extent when this conversation ends. Jim, you know me. I don't give my heart away easily. And since then, I'm sorry, Jim. Since I was with Rob years ago, I can't give my body without love. He and I loved each other when we were close. When we stopped dating, I thought that love in my life was over. Like everyone else, I crave intimacy, but I couldn't lie with another man until you came into my life. Like a tidal wave compared to Rob's oasis, I gave myself completely to you. I knew I could without hesitation because you were an unshakable rock. You will never stop loving me. I know that because of what I have done and through. That I fooled you, you will never stop loving me. Addie looked at me with eyes that were as deep as the ocean and just as mysterious and incomprehensible. The latter was not because I couldn't read her underlying feeling, but because there were so many emotions. She took my hand. Her grip was strong. It was like the rehab days and carried the message, don't let go. You heard what you thought was my desire to rekindle the affair. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about Rob. I love him. Wait, this is different from you, very different. Your head and shoulders above him. I told him this. You are stronger and more capable, both emotionally and physically. You are a better lover, protector, and provider. Rob and I are so similar, makes us a terrible couple, doesn't it? He's like me, almost a mirror. Rob and I enhance the good and the worst in each other. You're different, Jim. To me, you're like a force of nature, if not nature itself. That's pretty scary, Jim. I loved Rob once, and it started again. I swear it's not a new love, it's an old love. I didn't fall in love with a new man. Nothing got through the armor of your love, but he was already inside. With Rob, it's just a feeling of rightness and belonging, but you're fucking something else. It's like you're the truth or something I can't define, something much bigger than me. I wanted to object to this, but Addie continued, not allowing me to get a word in. Jim, I loved Rob once, and I started again. And yes, as you know, it got physical. Eddie's tears became stronger, and she couldn't hold my gaze. It took her a few minutes to compose herself and continue, but she fought to regain calm the entire time. I was impressed. She really wanted me to know and understand her feelings and motives. What I didn't understand was extremely important to her. You may not believe it, but I never stopped loving you. I didn't want to move away, but the guilt. I had a rock of rocks, and I wasn't up to your standard, and I didn't have to. All I had to do wasn't to fail. I didn't even have to be tough. I didn't have to do anything but be myself. So of course I did it. I started to speak, but Addie cut me off. Jim, this is very important to both of us, but especially to you. I didn't mean to distance myself from you. I pulled away from you. Jim, I didn't pull away from you because of Rob. This happened by accident due to crushing guilt. Eddie's expression was the definition of shame as she went into further explanation. I felt unworthy of you, but I also knew how much my betrayal hurt you. I should have stopped it, but the attraction to him was irresistible. I think it's obvious at this point. I failed you, hurt you, and was full of guilt. Who else could give me shelter and comfort? This is the worst twist in all of this. Rob, who was the cause of all my negative feelings, was the only one I was with. I could share them. So the man I shouldn't have been with, who made me pull away from you, became the one I turned to for comfort. It all accumulated. It was like a snowball rolling down a mountain. I'm just trying to explain. I would never dare justify my actions. You can't spit in the face of love, Jim. You've been saying that for a long time. So, to be honest with love, I loved Rob, I have to admit it, and honestly, Jim, I still love. I got up and went. I was full of it. I needed to let off some steam before I burst. Addie rushed after me. Wait, please wait, Jim. We're getting to the point. Just a few more seconds. I dodged her tug and walked towards the door. Addie began to climb over the bed to catch up with me. She was still on all fours, which, despite her rehabilitation, must have hurt a lot when she quickly screamed after her. You are completely superior to him in every way. I love you, Jim. Jim, I really do. I was so amazed by her words that I stopped and looked at her. Addie took the opportunity to quickly say more. But while I felt this, for him, I felt like I couldn't tell him to leave over the phone. I had to tell him in the hospital. I was weak and not yet myself. And to be honest, I was scared to death to say anything. I was too weak to handle his objections. So yes, I wanted to see him one last time in person to tell him that it was all over. Eddie saw that instead of calming me down, she increased the tension. She blurted out, "Let me warn you. I'm not saying I'm a tower of virtue. You might ask if seeing him one last time means I'd like to spend one last night with him. I can't deny that Rob has power over me, Jim, so I pray that this doesn't happen. It's not good enough for us or for me. I wanted a place that was public enough that it wouldn't happen, but private enough that it wouldn't humiliate him. I was worried that he had lost his wife and parents, and there was only one person left with whom he had a strong connection. I was a naive fool in the past. I know, I was flirty on the phone. I'm ashamed of what you heard. I didn't want to give him any reason to suspect anything. I already said that I'm not strong enough. I accepted that he has power over me, even how I feel about him. Please, Jim, I didn't want him to raise the stakes, and started coming here to change my mind. Someone would have seen him and told you, and you would have thought I was deceiving you again, or I hate this, he would have talked me into letting him in. If he had done that, I don't know if I could have stopped him. Do you understand, Jim? You have forgiven the betrayal. Can you forgive my way of completing it? Addie sighed. No secrets, my love. She shook her head in obvious disgust at what she was about to say. Forgive me, neither Rob nor I are as strong as you. If the roles were reversed between you and him, you would be noble enough not to do it. I don't know if Rob can. He's a good man. She lowered her head. As disgusting as it is to tell you this, I believe it, although it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But how many good people could push this away? I sincerely hope that I would have been strong enough to prevent this. She lowered her head again, although we already know that I was painfully weak. It took Eddie a moment to compose himself and stop his tears. I was interested that she recognized many of the problems and their depth. I wanted to hear more about her plan to fix everything. All she had to do was ask me to intervene, and I would make sure he never bothered us again. But she said she loved him. I needed to hear more about it. My parents were beside themselves on the phone. They consider you their son. My father begged me not to make today the last time you called him Dad. He even said that if you can no longer call him father, then he will. It's fair that I couldn't either. He said you're too good of a person to hurt Rob, but he's not like that. He said he would view Rob as a stranger attacking his son, even if his daughter didn't admit that. Rob is an attack on her marriage. I was more than taken aback by the direction the conversation took. It was a lot to take in. In her panicked state, Addie didn't give me time to think or respond. She seemed confident that any time to think would lead to a negative outcome. She hurried to fill the silence again. My mother took a different approach. She said you healed me, and in return I shouldn't. Kill you. She told me to think about life without you. It broke me. Carol and I cried all the time. Carol told me to record the next conversation in case you ever need to hear it, so I did. She's very thoughtful about it. Take my phone, it's set to talk, all you have to do is press play. Carol, I recorded it too, so you can compare notes and make sure I didn't edit it. Jim, you want to hear this. I told Rob on the phone to leave and never come back. I did it for the sake of our marriage and for one more reason. I told you that I have never loved you less. Well, when I thanked you for helping me in rehab, I thanked and praised you and even asked for your blessing, but I couldn't believe it. I never told you that I loved you. You didn't tell Carol, and she told me, Jim, I hurt you in so many ways. Myself for a long time, even before I heard that I would see Rob in person. Of course, you thought that I chose him. I love you. I love you as much as I can. Loving you better every day. I love you, Jim. Addie opened her arms, more nervous and excited than ever. She really didn't know what I would decide. I wasn't in a hurry to get to her, but I didn't make her wait either. I walked up to her and hugged her. She grabbed my shirt so tightly that she even scratched me through the fabric. Then she just fell apart. She seemed to be completely involved, completely sincere. But it was more of a relief than a reunion. I still felt something was wrong. Then I asked myself if this was what I wanted. And so it was. Have I retreated? Even if it was only for a moment, this was everything I wanted in life. Now that I have what I wanted, won't I allow myself to enjoy it? When I let go and hugged Eddie as tightly as I should have, she just melted away. I was thrilled that Addie was back. The next few months were heaven for me. Everyone, even Eddie, commented on her recovery and my support and obvious love for her. And Eddie's respect, I don't know what to call it, admiration for me. I know a lot of men never get this, so it's strange to say that even when you're basking in it, it's obvious that something serious is missing. I felt that the distance was growing between us. She looked at me with admiration for a long time, and then it seemed that she was more surprised at me. I didn't deserve this, but this strange feeling, especially in comparison, was alarming. I think everyone felt it as strongly as I did. It had to reach a boiling point. Addie stared at me as we prepared Sunday lunch in the kitchen. Her expression was amazing. I had never seen anything like it. Admiration mixed with inevitable vomiting. She obediently prepared everything she usually prepared to start our intimate afternoon. Coffee was an unusual addition. She smiled at me at every opportunity, almost like a housewife from a 50s sitcom. I moved us into the living room, simply leaving the kitchen there, and she followed me. When she handed me the coffee, her hands were shaking. She stood almost motionless, ready to offer me a drink. She put it on the table, and some coffee spilled, burning her hand. She looked in horror at the small amount of coffee spilled and the noise it made. It ruined the presentation and performance. A small incident threw her off the obvious script. She hurried to her dialogue. "Jim, I'm ready to remain your wife and try to make you happy for the rest of your days." These words seem strange between husband and wife. Why do I feel but? Her head shook slightly in a no gesture, but her eyes never left mine. "It's not fair and it's not good," she mumbled. Oh God, I thought, what's going on? Addie saw my face as I tried not to fall into 1,000 pieces. "But Jim, I long to be with Rob. I love you, I really do, but Rob." Addie squeezed her eyes shut. Her lips moved as if she was having an internal dialogue. She tried again. "You and I work so well together. We're perfect, let's combine. I know this won't always be the best match, but Rob and I are almost the same." Eddie stopped again. Her brow furrowed. Her mouth made a terrible expression, as if she was about to puke. She was terrified. When she finally formed the words, they were composed of pure sincerity. "I really love you, Jim. I want to love you more. I'm mad at God for not loving you more than Rob." I never felt myself falling. I only felt the impact of hitting the floor. Addie quickly walked towards me, but she still couldn't move quickly on her restored legs. I must have been lying there for a while. When she got to me, she knelt in front of me, hugging me. I knew it hurt her to kneel. "But I love you, Eddie." "I know," she said, sobbing, "and I love you. Forgive me. I love you more than I think many or most wives love their husbands. And I know that you love me more than any husband who I ever knew loves his wife but. Oh, I can't say it again. There must be a devil, Jim, because this must be his job. I've never felt anything but admiration for your presence, so why am I given a friend for whom my feelings can develop into? It's love, but it seems wicked, but it's love. I know we can't go forward together." She looked at me almost hopefully for a second. "Of course we can't. That would be a spit in the face of true love." I was as loud as I was obnoxious. I was something she feared, wounded, of course, but also disappointed in her. It burned her to the core, and this may explain the problem in our relationship. She cried and nodded. "I know, Jim. You didn't do anything wrong. You always put me first. And now, the time, the money, the effort, oh God, the love and dedication you put into my healing. You healed me when I was broken. You forgave me when I broke your heart. How could things turn out this way? I don't want to feel this way more than anything." Then she added quietly, "And I know that no one has ever loved me or loves me more. I know it, and I need you to know that I know it. It's just not fair, but I promise you because of everything. What have you done for me? I surrender myself into your hands. If you insist, I will stay with you. I will send Rob away." Her offer of loyalty and devotion seemed more like an insult, her eyes opening in fear as she finished. She saw the complete disgust on my face mixed with the absolute heartache in my eyes. I could read her thoughts. She had expressed herself somehow and tragically incorrectly. Her words brought me more pain than honor and love. "If I insist," I repeated, almost furious, "will you stay with me and send Rob away? He shouldn't be around at all to need to be sent. If he's here, it's by your will. Will you make the ultimate sacrifice by leaving him? That shouldn't be a sacrifice. That's what should never have happened. And this offer, which is actually your duty, should be some evidence of my worth. But you will send it away if I insist, and then blame me for its absence. Should you? Send him away a long time ago, and 1,000 times still. If you send him away because I insist, and not because it is the only right decision, will it destroy your feelings for me? Will it always be between us? Regret what you did? Will you stay if I insist? You make me sound like a creep or some ugly, ugly monster. All I ever did was love you. Addie looked helpless. No, no, that's not what I meant. But that's what you said. I married you, not him. I loved you first. I owe you, she said, as if she was trying to convince herself more than me. I kept my mouth shut for a long time, but it was too much. It was time to be honest. Addie knew she had turned love into something twisted and ugly. The truth was only ugly because it made it that way. Only because of a commitment to me. Ha, you should have left him before it became love, but now you love him more. You've shirked your commitment to me at every turn. It's a little late to play the martyr. She turned away. I can't tell you how sorry I am. In many ways, I would have preferred death instead of this moment. Instead of telling you this, even instead of you finding out about my affair. What you found out about this in the hospital, where you were with me day and night, only makes it worse. I already knew, I hissed. Addie gasped. I noticed that my next statement was less intense. The sad reality sank into him. I've known for a while. I waited months for it to pass. It didn't. I wanted you to see it as a dirty deal. You didn't. I wanted you to choose me. You didn't. Chose. It was killing me. We had a weekend planned before your accident. I planned to talk about it all then. I was going to make you see how dirty it was, then I was going to send Rob away. Eddie was shocked. She cried and cried, oh God, Jim, maybe I got my wish. What do you mean? My point is that I would rather die than ever tell you this. Maybe I should have died in the accident. I was on my way to Rob's when it happened. I planned, oh God, this is not fair, nothing is right, neither then nor now. You and I planned to go away for the weekend. Instead, I planned, but I tried to talk myself out of telling you on the Friday before we left that I'm leaving you too. Be with Rob. My righteous anger went out like a candle. Addie tried to explain, my mindset was that you didn't have to see anyone or deal with this all weekend because we were planning on going away together. So if I left you on Friday, you'd have that time, away from everyone to gather myself before facing the real world, without me. Eddie's eyes practically projected tears. Mine were supposed to be lasers, but they were cold. I thought, oh my God, she's still talking. But Jim, it also seemed cruel to tell you and leave you to wallow in it. I never meant to hurt you, never to be cruel to you. And yet, there was no way not to be. Now knowing that you already knew and were going to take me away to save our union at the very time I was planning to destroy, it is heartbreaking in itself. I thought I couldn't feel worse. I'm damned, aren't I? Addie asked herself out loud. How can you be cursed because of love? Then, to her credit, Addie thought about how that remark hurt me. Her face turned towards me with wide eyes. I'm sorry, Jim, it was thoughtless. Her eyes were huge and full of fear, as if she saw me burning at the stake. I shook my head to clear my thoughts and replied, yes, mindlessly. No, not cursed. You, my love, will have the blessings of love. You will feel bad about me, fair enough, but you will have Rob to hug and comfort you, and you will have someone to whom you can give your love. Let me tell you what it means to be cursed because of love. I love someone who does not want my love, who will not accept my love. The terrible math added up in my head. It looks like it's true. I'm cursed because of love. Eddie's face became a mask of horror, as if she had seen the revelation of all-consuming doom. She feared the curse because of love and miraculously escaped it, but only by sending me to suffer her fate. Oh, my Lord, Jim, what have I done? I never wanted this to happen. I would have died to prevent it. But I did. You can't pay for my sin, but you pay. Jim, please, How can I stop this? Eddie, I will fight to the death for you if you let me. Do you want me to win your heart? This was the last chance for the biggest thing I had found in life. Addie was sobbing, just sobbing. Jim, I love you. I don't know what you'll make of this, and it hurts Rob. But I tried to seduce you into loving me when I had favorable days. I stopped taking the pills after the accident. It was a chemical we could lose to avoid potential interactions with other medications the doctors were giving me. You were my nurse. Somehow you needed to clean and deal with my women's mechanization nature only strengthened everything that was wrong. But you didn't even wrinkle your nose. I cried for many reasons, the main one being that I wanted to be pregnant, and only with your child. I was completely yours all this time. Pregnancy would force me to make a choice. You wanted to stay with me, and I would raise your child and leave everything else, including Rob. It was cowardly, but it would take the decision off my plate, and I would enjoy being your wife and the mother of your children. Having your children would take you to an even higher level. But Jim, this is also where some of the disconnect occurs. Explain this, Eddie, because I believe that you just chose another man over me, and at the same time wanted to be with me and raise my children. I cannot reconcile these opposing desires. She almost screamed, but it's true. I wouldn't be torn, not one bit. You may be on a different plane than me. There are times, many of them, when I feel like I can't reach you. But you love me completely, and I love you, and oh God, you must always put the children first, so that the decision would be made for me. Any personal desires would be overcome, circumvented, and deceived, since the circumstances would be completely different. I prayed about guidance, and the thought of having your children came to me. I thought it was the answer to my prayers, but it did not happen. The doctor says that I will function properly again, but I am still so weak that my body is not yet completely restored reproduction, and that conception decreases when a woman is under stress. This was my doctor's best answer as to why there was no prayer. Answered. If she was, I would be completely with you. I swear to you, Jim, I would be completely with you. Her face was joyful at the thought of no longer being torn between two loves. Then she was sad, returning to where she had led us. As it is, I have a decision to make, and I'm torn. I'm not completely with you. I know what I have to do in these circumstances. Jim, I am as honest as possible with you, for your sake, for our sake, and even for my own sake. Thinking about you, I sincerely wish that these were not such circumstances. So much of me loves you. So much of my heart loves you, but with a heart, it's all or nothing. I'm terribly sorry, Jim, my heart wants Rob. It's a good thing I was on the floor, otherwise I would have fallen again. I'm sure I looked dazed and lost. I looked at my beloved wife, who is now hovering above me, and everything seemed unreal. At the same time, my heart was breaking, and I felt like I was dying. Honestly, if it was real and I could choose to die, I would seriously consider the possibility. Eddie looked strange. She turned gray again. Oh, Jim, that's something you can't forgive, can it? Oh, Jim, you can't die. And I can't be the instrument that kills you. Oh, Jim. Addie looked broken and guilty, but I felt that maybe not all the blame was mine. And I don't know if what she did next was meant to make amends to the other or to support me and keep me from being destroyed by letting me know that I was in the presence of an enemy. Rob is here, Jim. Can I let him in? All I could think about were the lines from the Ave Maria prayer at the hour of our death. To understand how deeply I felt this, understand that I am not Catholic. Strangely, I felt my heart beating faster. It was not a blow of love. It was the trembling of a mortally wounded man who must save his children from a car accident before they get hurt too. There was something contemptuous in my disappointment. Here, you brought him here for this conversation. This is extremely ungrateful. I backtracked on most of the words I was thinking of using. Even so, Addie acted as if part of her had simply fallen to the floor next to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin it. But no, don't forgive me. She should have known what was going on. She deserved it. It also gives absolute falsehood to your words about loving me and absolute confirmation to your statement about the insufficiency of your love for me. insufficiency by absence. I paused, then added, well, of course. The wages of the vanquished are mine. No mercy, no dignity, only the taste of ashes. I shook my head. I don't deserve much of this, Eddie, but I don't deserve this extra humiliation at all. This is as personal as it gets for me, and you invite fans to celebrate my downfall. You must hate me. We could at least do this. Privately, share me intimately instead of publicly. Are you filming this for the internet? This hooked me, and I had to consider my options. Many actions, both good and bad, can be exactly the same and are determined only by the motivation behind them. Eddie bent under some large, invisible weight. She curled up on her hip, raising herself up with her arms outstretched. She tried to say something. It sounded like she was choking. Something like, no, or I didn't mean it that way. I wasn't sure her motives mattered much since they were gut punches while I was on the floor anyway. And I shouldn't have been on the floor in the first place. I'll still feel sorry for her even if she can't be decent to me. Strangely, it seemed like she intended it to be some kind of slow, controlled decline for me, rather than what it turned out to be. She knew me. How could she believe that it would be anything else? To hell with it, she made her choice. Let's see what else she had planned. I nodded to her to let her lover in. As soon as Rob heard me agree to enter, he walked in and stood next to Eddie, holding her between us. I had no desire to stay with her if she wanted him around. I pulled myself together and stood up. I went to the computer. Our home had a sophisticated security system that I installed while it was being restored. I wanted to know if Eddie needed help, if she was in trouble anywhere. I wanted her to know that she could reach out to me from anywhere. I made a copy of our recent conversation in the living room and sent it to my phone. Rob and Eddie didn't care what I was doing. They were too caught up in their feelings. I think this conversation was so traumatic for Addie that she needed to have her own support. Ready. This was another shot at the balls for me. She cared about herself, but not about me. Damn it, I was ambushed. Now it was an ambush. What started out as a cordial conversation between spouses, Rob's presence made it something else. Addie saw how his presence changed my perception of events. She closed her eyes, realizing that his presence was a huge mistake. I looked at them. He was trying to help her. She was in despair, shaking her head, could not speak. I know my face expressed not only despair and pain, but also disgust at the contempt she must have felt for me. I never deserved this, and yet here I was, struck and destroyed by her hand. She didn't think about my condition. I'm sure they didn't call anyone to help me. They moved forward, starting to heal so they could love. I was yesterday's hero and yesterday's news. Sometimes a good guy gets bored, sometimes he does things for himself. I looked at Rob with hostility. The situation was bad enough, but he didn't belong here. He saw my angry look. So many emotions to juggle. Thank you too, I thought. For his part, Rob was reluctant to speak. When he finally spoke, he tried to sound as conciliatory as possible. A wise man. He finally asked what I was doing at the computer. All he said was my name, Jim. I didn't turn to him. I answered as I continued to work. Rob, first of all, Addie is my wife at this point, and this is my home. Touching her here puts you in grave danger. Do you understand? His hands, which were reaching out to Eddie, froze, and in her honor, Eddie immediately began to crawl away from him. Despite what she did, her face was pure compassion for me now. Secondly, Rob, my family thinks Addie is the greatest woman in the world. It's because I told them she is. Addie's parents told me they couldn't imagine a better life partner for their daughter than me. Moreover, I am the son they never had. Eddie started crying louder. Rob's face went through many expressions as he came to his conclusions. Wait, you don't understand, I warned. Some who know us as a couple, or perhaps friends who are more mine than hers, will want revenge. Some will be angry at Eddie or me, and so on. Eddie was honest with me about the facts of the matter, that she wants you, not me, and that she is sorry. She is deceiving herself, thinking that she still holds me in some special way, especially in love. That doesn't love me enough to fight for me or hold me, or frankly, from what I see here, care about me. I shook my head, figuring that no one wanted to hear another word today. The point of view was too ugly in itself. When the pause ended, I added, I'm going to have my say. Rob, I'm sorry, you won't love Eddie as well as I can or do. That's why, if you loved her and saw her break under the pressure of your demands, if you knew she was in love with her husband, who treats her well and loves her, you would remove yourself from the equation. That is, if you loved her as much as I do. I see how. She loves you so much now, and because I love her as much as I know, I also see how impossible my position is, and that my fighting for her will only hurt her. So, I remove myself from the situation. I love you. It's too much. I just can't let Eddie suffer. She howled. I was working in contradiction to myself. Rob looked at me with his mouth open. I took this as an invitation to explain further. Rob, I don't think either of us honestly believes that you wouldn't be dead in a matter of seconds if I wanted it. Well, I really want it, and really, very much. But your death would hurt Eddie, so instead I will die pushing you from under the bus because I love Eddie so much. I lost. It amazes me that I was never given the chance to fight for what I want most in life, the woman I thought was mine. I realize now that even after knowing about this affair for a while, Addie lost her love for me before I knew about it. I was dead all this time and just didn't know it. That explains all the expressions on her face that I couldn't read anymore. All those deep looks I got from her were pity or something other than love. Damn it, I could feel the lack of love. I shook my head to no one in particular. This last moment ate me up. Addie may not have had control over who she loved, but what she said to me with Rob by my side showed the complete lack of compassion that I found stunning for the person you lived with and once loved. When my veil lifted, I added soberly, I want one thing in the future. It could be far in the future. I never thought of you as a bad person, so why and how could you continue to accept my love, using it for your healing when you already knew that you stopped loving me? I never thought that you were capable of this. Before she could answer, I shrugged. I didn't want to hear another word from her today. It was time to end this. I pointed to the corner of the ceiling. This conversation, this scene, this debacle was captured by the security system I installed to keep an eye on Eddie as she recovered. This is not for spying on her. I thought I had defeated you. There was no need to spy. This was to make sure Eddie didn't fall and be left without help, assistance, or compassion. Today's random post will allow those who want or need to speak out on this matter because of their own emotional investment to know that it was love on her part and that it was futile on mine. That no matter how sad the end of our marriage was, this is what needs to be done, and they need to leave it. Those who will be angry about this should know that they should just leave you alone. It's too late, it's over. They need to direct their efforts and energy elsewhere. So this will be my last gift to you both. I heard Addie sigh, and then in a hoarse voice say, Jim, one day I'll talk to you. Alone. I'll do it right when we do it. I'm so sorry about today. Everything that happened today and everything, what led to this. But you already have the answer, so I will meet you that day to answer it. I do not agree with your assessment of my love for you. I am pathetically weak, and I have failed miserably in love. To you. A good and true person should never go through this with the love of his life. I needed you and loved you, and I didn't want to ever take myself away from you. I need you now, but I know I don't. I can continue to steal from you. If I could not find a way to be completely yours, especially in light of how completely you give yourself to me, then I should not continue to steal your love. I tried and failed. I know that my failure will crush you, and I'm sorry for that too. I didn't deserve your love. All you wanted in life was a very flawed me, and I really wanted to give it to you. All the demigod who loved me wanted was a weak, unworthy, mortal me, and I wanted to give you what you wanted. I knew that I would ruin it. Every time I thought about it, I felt a little less in comparison with you, and I felt like I was a little more distant. I didn't want it. Obviously, I never found a way to fight it. I still love you and always will, but that's not enough. I have to answer for this, Jim, and the day he comes, I won't let you down. But Jim, I will. I'm afraid that the opportunity to redeem myself will not arise in this life. No matter how hard I try to find a way out, I could not escape my fate of hurting you in exchange for your love for me. We were silent for some time. I thought about the things I need to take with me. The thought was spinning in my head. Finally, I said, I don't see why I have to leave. It's on you, Eddie. You have to go. I saw on Rob's face how he didn't expect this, and also wasn't interested in the house being manna from heaven for him. This calmed my anger. I added, but really, staying here now would be haunting me with the echo of your absence. I sighed, if you haven't already, Eddie, don't sleep in our bed with him. Just throw away the mattress with the memories of me on it. She showed no signs of past guilt about Rob's visits to our bed, so at least I had that. She didn't even pale at my less than romantic term for their physical expression of love. I turned to collect my things. I added while my back was to them, Eddie, I won't cause you or you any problems, but try to stay away from me. I don't want a humiliating encounter with you and another man. Addie could tell I wasn't finished. I hesitated, searching for words that would not burden my question with my own losses. I have to ask you something. I'm asking because I'm concerned about your happiness. Before I answer, I want you to really think about it. I paused again, letting her know that I was asking a question, not discussing it. Is this really what you want? Specifically, him instead of me? I nodded towards Rob. Eddie responded so sadly that it was hard not to comfort her. I thought about this almost all the time. Yes, this is what I want. I raised my hand before she could say she was sorry again. I said, then once I'm gone, it's irreversible. You can't keep jumping between us. Rob certainly made a wonderful return to your heart. He worked very hard to make this happen. I won't. I'll respect boundaries and your love together, doing the opposite of how Rob disrespected ours. Also, I will not want you back. You made a choice for your happiness, despite my significant damage. Perhaps one day you will realize that I never did the same towards you. It may change your mind about who can take better care of you, but it will be too late if you let me go after all this. I won't be able to come back. Wait, Eddie suddenly shouted. I turned to her. Addie pulled herself up, supporting herself with her arms outstretched. Jim, somehow you knew you were in this mess. You knew about my infidelity for much longer than I thought. Even if you didn't know it would happen today, even if you didn't believe that this would be the result. The look of self-hatred on her face at those last few words stopped my heart. I don't know how she could think, but she didn't plan for it to be so. Bloody. Jim, please tell me, like the smartest person I know, that you have a contingency plan to do something, to be with someone, if things go wrong with us. Please, Jim, tell me that you do not remain there, without help or compassion. The sadness with which she repeated my words earlier was terrifying. I answered honestly, honey, you said it yourself, with an all-or-nothing heart. I understand how love works, even if I don't understand love. I thought I did. Clearly not. Everything proves it. Her head bobbed back and forth, saying, no, no, no. Rob wanted to hug her. Eddie signaled for him not to do this. Jim, this is Rob and I together, there for each other in the future, as you say, but we both owe it to you. We are not possible without your permission. As you said, you could kill Rob, or me, easily. She walked a tightrope, understanding the facts on my side, while not wanting to humiliate Rob. It seems like Rob and I are the everyone in an all-or-nothing scenario, and you get nothing. What can we do for you? I promise, and you have the same from Rob, we won't cause any problems. I will support you in whatever you need, organ donation, whatever. There was nothing I could have said to make her feel better about what she had done. I didn't want to, and according to her, it was no longer my job. Everything except getting my love back, right? How did you support me all these months while I helped you recover while you were planning to leave me? I said this calmly, without anger, but the truth in the words was ugly enough in itself. She lowered her head. You need to know that this is not entirely true. Today, this hell I created was a recent decision and not nearly as thoughtful as I thought. I can't believe how poorly I handled it, and how, across the board, I was in a hurry. It seems that once I was convinced that this had to be the outcome, allowing you to live in a world that I knew I was going to destroy was another betrayal I never intended or thought it would be. Terrible. And God is my witness. I understand every one of your objections. I am guilty of almost all of them, as I am accused. I don't know why they were not obvious to me. And yes, I know how much this statement hurts you too. At least I can be honest. Now that I've ruined the life and dreams of the best person I've ever met. I saw Rob look at Eddie. She answered him quietly, in a manner that I thought was appropriate. Rob, you know, she looked at me with a grimace, how I feel about you. But neither you nor I can be considered such good people as Jim. He is completely innocent. We are deceivers. We did this to him. He did you a very good thing when he probably should have killed you. We both selfishly take what we want and move towards a happy life together. But our happy life is built on the radioactive wreckage of what we did to our once happy life. Jim, we destroyed him to get what we wanted. We did not intend to hurt him, but we knew what the price would be for our unification, and we sentenced Jim to pay for us. This, however, perversely proves that you and I are made from the same cloth and that we deserve each other, if not happiness. Eddie's eyes begged Rob to understand. What was it like? He seemed to understand. I had a perverse desire to add a fly in the ointment to their happy future. So you want to do something for me to make it up to me. What do I need now? I planned to win, to protect love, but so did you too, and you won. Amazing, Eddie, you competed with me. She forced out another sob, amazed at herself. So love has its winners and its defenders, as well as its losers. I was completely involved. I was given great love. I defended it with everything I had, well, at least with what I was allowed. I just couldn't protect my marriage and love from my own life partner, from the woman I loved. I could do it now, but I won't. I still respect the love that was given to me, no matter how much I was disgusted with it. Outcome. Eddie's fists shook in a perfect display of desperate bitterness. I might be bitter towards myself because my wife found me inadequate and not worthy of her love, but I didn't have to despise myself or know that I had ruined the person I loved. This will be a big burden for Eddie in the future. As nice a guy as Rob was, I couldn't imagine him being up to the task. Honestly, Eddie, I have no backup plan, no contingency plan. I have nowhere to go, nothing to do, no tomorrow. I was fully involved. How could I be anything less than fully involved and to honor you or love? I never deceived love or you. So what do I need when I have no known future? It was never possible to lose. I turned again to go pack my things, suddenly wondering why I was doing this. Maybe I should leave without anything. I could easily pick up all the necessary hygiene items. Any supplies I was going to take didn't help me save my life or save the love of my life. How good are they? What value do they have? Maybe I should leave completely. I took my phone, wallet, and keys from the table. I could come back for something else later. Addie asked the question in a hoarse voice. How will you live? I turned to her, stuffing my modest belongings into my pockets, reminding myself that I asked for this. Eddie was shocked. What? How could you ask for this? I told you, you didn't do anything wrong. Addie was confused and angry that I felt that this debacle was somehow my fault. She wanted to protect me. It's too late for that, I thought. I tried to smile while explaining. No, no, I love you. I didn't want to lose you. But that doesn't change the fact that the matter was decided against me. It's the sober realization that it was decided before I even had a chance to fight. I spent 2 years making one last desperate push, only to discover that it was a foregone conclusion, hell, probably those 2 years ago. I looked up, shaking my head. I should have held on a little longer. I thought, well, you've taken everything from me. Can you let me walk away with a little dignity? Can you scratch the bottom of the barrel for this? If not, I understand. It's beyond our agreement. But it hardly seems an unreasonable request in these circumstances. After my prayer, I cleared my mind to talk to Eddie again. Eddie, Here's the how and the why and the why. You see, Eddie, even in those months when I knew about Rob before the accident, I wanted more. I wanted you to love me, for you to choose me, and for us to have what we once had. And I was ready to swallow my pride to have it. I was ready to turn a blind eye to your betrayal. But then the accident, and you were still in a coma, in a state of neither life nor death. You had nothing in this state, and I could not have what I so fiercely craved, you. I was so desperate that, having tried everything I knew for your sake, I began to try what I did not know. It came to me like a bolt of lightning. In my desperation, I asked God if I could make a deal with him. I wanted more, I wanted you, but even if the price was losing you and your love for Rob, I would pay. This price if he would just let you live again. I held back tears as they filled my eyes. So, good deal for you, huh? I had to pause to maintain my composure. How can I complain? The Almighty gave me what I asked for. Right? I coughed a little. So, Rob, make the best of it. Because, as I've always thought, Eddie truly is a gift from God. Rob just stood there with his mouth open. Eddie started to cry and wanted to hug him, but thinking about me, she pulled away from him. Eddie knew me, I wasn't prone to hyperbole. I truly believed what I told them. She fought back most of her tears and stood up, trembling. As she stood up, Addie walked away from Rob, knowing that my last memory of her should not be with another man. She bowed to me with reverence. I nodded slightly and turned to leave. I didn't look back. My time was up. I lost. So call me whatever you want. I didn't burn the bitch or kill the one who interfered. Maybe they will punish themselves. I have no desire to do that. Just because I was relieved of my responsibility to protect my wife does not mean I no longer wanted to protect her. Damn it, I still loved her. It's a happy ending just for them, and not a completely happy ending even for them. Knowing their suffering, Eddie's guilt, and the likely reactions of our friends and family, I can imagine what they will face in the future. Did I want them? Did I want Addie to suffer? Remember, I wanted her to live. I know the heart isn't supposed to be reasonable, but the inconsistency between wanting to lose her if she could live and wanting her to live with constant guilt or remorse won't do. No, this is not love. I want Addie to be happy. I want this so much that I am ready to pay for her happy life with my own. My only regret is that my love for her will inevitably fade to some extent. This has to be for me to survive without her. However, I passed an important test. As a parent releasing your child into adulthood, you need to allow those you love to seek their own happiness. You have to love them enough to let them break your heart. So, if you want to laugh at me for losing and for not getting revenge again, go ahead. However, I need to tell you about a few consolations that I have. One turned out to be unhelpful, but a complete offer of love and support to my wife, and the result doesn't seem like much of a consolation, does it? This is it. When you lose the most important thing, the craziest thing there is the possibility that there was or could be something else that you could try. All those could become shoulds against the backdrop of lost love. The fact that I gave everything makes me look stupid and weak, even ridiculous to some. But I really gave everything. It just wasn't enough. Or maybe there was enough, but Addie just didn't want it from me. In the end, there was nothing I could do about it. There was no mitigation of my defeat. I was defeated, as if I were an abusive and harmful husband from whom Eddie needed to be saved. There was no next chapter, no reconciliation, no turning back. But that's the point. I lost completely. Nothing I tried worked. The battle was over before I knew I was in it. Everyone, including Eddie, thinks this is the most unfair thing they've ever seen. My struggle was a complete failure, a complete futility. Think about it. If I'm doomed to be single for the rest of my life, then thank God I don't have what ifs to keep me up at night. I really did my best. As Addie said, it wasn't fair and it wasn't right. But that's how it was. I was defeated. I won't be able to survive this, so I just have to cope. I just need to get used to it. But I don't need to ever look back or be haunted by the question of what else I could have tried, or how things could have been. So that night I turned around, put my hands in my pockets, and walked away. I brought my wife back to life, and for it, I lost everything I loved. Now I had to pay, I honor my agreements. Time to find some positive way to live the rest of my days. Find some motivation to get up every morning while continuing to pray for freedom from my life sentence every night. So what if I could do it all over again? Wanting Eddie to choose me, I set off on a doomed course. The only change I could make was to kill Rob without letting Eddie know that I knew anything about him or her having an affair. I don't believe it would have made her love him any less, although I don't think her love for me would have suffered as much. However, I think it would make her crave him for the rest of her life. I think she's hungry for me now. Who cares? She's still with him, and I'm alone. Would I take her back if she suddenly came to her senses? That's a good question. I was serious when I left. She did not show me any attention approaching love in her last hour with me. She only felt guilty about me. It's clear to me that I still loved her. No, I wouldn't take her back. I respect love too much to make that mistake. Love makes demands on us sometimes, but it should not make us puppets. This is not real love. No, Eddie had her chance. She made her choice. But what about going back in time, meeting her and falling in love? Would I do it again? This is where you laugh in my face. For many wonderful years, Addie truly loved me, and as you saw, I loved her completely. Would I like to go back and try loving her in measured tones, treating love like a rental? No. So would I love her completely? Yes, I should have, and I would try again to make her feel what I felt. Even with my outcome, love is a matter of value, not a cost-benefit analysis. The value far exceeds any possible cost. You must choose a worthy partner. Despite what the end of my novel tells you, for many years Addie was the best possible partner. I mistakenly thought that before death and beyond. On the other hand, I admitted that I did not understand love as much as I thought. But there are few things I wouldn't do, including killing poor Rob, even if it cost me my own life, for a chance at true love. Death is a deal if it goes to protect love. In the end, I burned my life trying to protect something that no longer existed. An ironic twist on blinded by love, if ever there was one. You see, the saddest possibility for love is not to lose it. It's never going to find her. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.